Live streaming is on.
Hey everyone, it's S. Ladybug checking in with Yarn Movement. I am here in what I call the flight deck. Today is Sip and Stitch Sunday, so I'm here with my sip. Thanks to the folks over at Shaka Tea. I really love their teas, so you'll see these quite often. Shaka Tea is a Hawaiian-based tea company. Their main ingredient is mamaika, and it is a superfood. And their teas are created for any diet. It's sugar-free, it's keto friendly, it's vegan, and it's delicious. So, cheers to you all. Happy Sunday. So, for today's Sip and Stitch, as for every Sunday, we are working on these granny square beanies. Aren't they beautiful? Thanks. So every beanie is being created as a contribution. All the proceeds actually for when they're sold or go towards the nonprofit arm of Yarn Movement for Believe in What You Dream. So one beanie is enough to support two girls. So that's two Dream Girl kits. Inside those Dream Girl kits, they'll get all the supplies needed for the actual workshop, but they'll also get a few bonus additives, which is a solar lamp, personal hygiene products, and for those who are age appropriate, sanitary products. Because again, we're going into areas and regions where they're underdeveloped. Some of the everyday things that we use here in the US are luxuries, and want to be able to help those girls in those ways. So as I get them hyped up on crocheting and creating beautiful things, I want them to be able to be present. And so with your help, we can go through and empower those girls theoretically, but also economically as well. So I have already went ahead and created the granny squares for today. So in order to make one beanie, you need you need 8 granny squares. So 4 on each side. And I'm just going to go through and put together a beanie so you can see it. And while I do that, I'm going to share a little bit about just this journey of helping girls along this way. So we have some black yarn here, and I'm going to use the black to finish out the borders on this hat. So why did I start this program? So this program came out of an experience I had that really marks back to my freshman year of college. I traveled to Oaxaca, Mexico, where I was in a program where I was working at a hospital because I was pre-med, but I also did a cultural exchange that was centered around textiles, food, and just the culture of just being in Mexico. So we did a little bit of everything. There was weaving, there was a pottery class, there was a salsa lesson, we did a cooking lesson. And for all of those reasons, and the experience of also just seeing a whole lot of kids just in the streets daily, and after finding out that many of them were in the streets because their parents really can only afford to send one kid to school each day. And so depending on who that kid was, then you'll see like this rotation that happens amongst the kids. And I just always said that whenever I was in position to do something about it, that I would. I actually wanted to do this the opposite way. See, there is a pattern that's connected to these squares. On one side, it looks like this, and you probably can't even tell the difference, but I can. I just like that extra braided look versus this one here. So I'm going to do it so that detail is on the outside. So yeah, so I decided that whenever I was in position to do something about it, that I would. And I'm in position to do something about it. And so 4 years ago, I decided to do something about it. So I went into Nigeria just to do some research, see the lay of the land, see if it would be something that was even considered like a positive thing to do in the region. And that was just bringing my yarn along, seeing how I could sit in front of a group of girls and teach them to crochet. And it worked out well, more so I was doing the research of understanding it was my first time on continent. I went by myself. My background is in investigative research science. So I use my background of just investigating the lay of the land, understanding the different levels, and decided that the program should be centered around three different parts. One being this concept of understanding, believing in something, believing in your dreams. And so the best thing that I could come up with to just visualize having a dream and believing it was a dream catcher. Here in the States, it's dream catchers are, something that you will see, especially amongst the Native Americans, where dream catchers are traditionally used as a symbol of, you know, spiritual nature of how dreams operate in your life. That the really good ones are going to flow through, and the concept of bad ones, things that you shouldn't be thinking about, are just going to get tangled up. And I felt like that was like a great representation of filtering your thoughts. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to make dream catchers. We got that part. And then I was just like, okay, so what else needs to kind of happen? Well, it's this whole like writing down process, that I call journaling your journey. And literally, you have a journal, and typically you write down, an experience of some type, right? And so this experience is centered around how you're able to operate in this presence of your dreams. So you write down what your dream is, and you're connecting it with your hands because you're actually writing it. So you're manifesting what you want to happen. So when I get older, this is my dream. When, this happened, this is what I would like to do at this age, and literally writing down specifically what you want to happen. So in addition to that, there is another step. You have to go back and really think about how you're going to do these things, right? And you're not going to know how until you jump out there and do it, get in your own pilot seat, take a few steps, take a few risks. But along the way, when you take those risks or you jump out there, that's when all the lessons come. And if you're not writing them down, you may have something that you thought was a complete loss, but it wasn't a loss. It was a lesson that you forgot to write down. Because in the future, it's going to pop up again, but you're going to know how to handle it. And, I guess the metaphor for me is like, you're in the pilot seat, you've been through turbulence before. Only with experience do you know how you're going to get through the turbulence quicker. How are you going to make sure your passengers are taken care of, and make sure you're getting people, to a point where everything is smooth sailing and clean? So you have to journal it, write it down, figure out what lessons, what losses you had to take, or whatever it may be. And lastly is learning crochet. Learning to crochet is essentially how painters have their brushes, writers have their pens. Crocheters, knitters, we have our yarn and we have our crochet hook. And so it is a way where we're basically willing our destiny through our hands. And so that's a lesson being taught. If you're teaching coding, you're teaching people how to code. The patterns that we have with crocheting or knitting or anything that you're doing by hand, that is its own code, right? And it's all about how you're utilizing it to, transcribe it. And so that's really the program. It's the three parts: Dreamcatcher, journal your journey, learn to crochet. That is how we're allowing and helping these girls to discover their superpowers, because their superpowers is within them. We can talk until we're blue in the face. We can show them how to do a million things, but it's until you inside, you believe what you're dreaming yourself, and you make this connection between your mind and your hands, will allow you to get on track. And when that happens, that's when we can say we have empowered these girls theoretically by mind, and also economically by putting them in position where they can utilize their minds to activate their hands to do something moving forward. If you are interested in any part helping, contributing to the lives of the next generation of future womenpreneurs, female bosses, visit donate.yarnmovement.com and sponsor a few Dream Girl kits sponsor a few of these girls so their futures are super bright moving forward. And guess what? You can look cute while you do it by buying one of these lovely beanies, because one beanie will support two girls. And you have they're all kind of different shapes, sizes, colors. You have like flexibility on what kind of fits into your style. If you have a coat that you want to match up for winter, I have a lot of clients, probably since the beginning of my career, which was started in high school. It was all about sneaker releases, right? So I was making, of course, not granny square beanies, because this is something that is genuine to this time. But I was definitely making beanies to match up with sneaker releases. So if you had a new J's that were coming out and you wanted a hat, you had the shoes, and then you had to go with it along with the outfit, killing them. And that's exactly the vibe that I'm going for. That when you throw on one of these beanies, you're not only looking good in the moment, but you're reminding yourself that you're also empowering a girl somewhere. And that's what it's really all about, you know? So I chose actually to do granny squares because granny squares are my favorite pattern to do as far as crochet goes. For some people, it's not their favorite because you do have to change colors a lot, which means you have to go through and back sew, to make it look neat. But I just love them, and partially they remind me of times with my grandmother and her friends, because that's actually how I learned to crochet. Not from my grandmother, but her really good friend named Cora May, who they would have their own like creative circles. I would call them stitching bitches, but they weren't really that, because not all of them were crocheting, or some of them were cross stitching. But really, it was kind of like a healing circle, where they used the time to kind of catch up on the newest, latest gossip. And sometimes I would just be there because I love spending time with my grandmother, even to this day. And I learned to cross stitch, I learned to sew, and I learned to crochet. And crocheting was one that I kind of willed on my own, because Cora was the only one who came around who crocheted. And I don't know, she used to come in with these really big tote bags. And, I love telling this story over and over again because I'm still fascinated by it this day, even with myself, because I carry around huge tote bags sometimes with a lot of yarn in them. And depending on how long I'm going to be in a setting, I can typically get a project done. And that's exactly what Cora used to do. Like, she would come, these big bags of yarn, and I mean, everybody had blankets. you know, she'll come in and, she'll be halfway done with the project or done with it by the time they'll finish their meetups. And I was just so fascinated, because I'm like, I need to do that. My grandmother, she was all about cross stitch embroidery. So, I would spend a lot of time helping her get the threads untangled. More than an ocean, okay? Because unlike with crochet, like, I can make a yarn ball and throw this in the bag. I don't have to worry about it getting too much tangled. But if I leave it like this, it'll definitely be tangled. But I'm gonna use this to finish up this project anyway. But it just reminded me of those days, because the yarn, I mean, the thread was just so thin. It would come in like these thin, like 5, 6 ply, and she would take one to do the cross stitch embroidery. So even just trying to pull one thread off of a whole like bunch of yarn, it would tangle on just doing that one step. So just imagine when she have like all these different colors that she would utilize to switch up. And it was just like it was fun during the time, but it was definitely one of those things when I saw Cora crocheting, I said, I need to learn this because, it's bigger thread I was looking at, the yarn is much more easier to deal with, even though it can get tangled as well. But I just fell in love. I knew that was going to be like my new favorite thing to do, and it still is to this day. So we have our 4 pieces put together. So now the next step is to put these 2 together. So we'll have 4 on each side, and then we're going to put the 4 together, stitch up the sides, and we're going to be done with our beanie. And that is going to make up today's sip and stitch. So again, this part right here, if you're familiar with quilting, you're basically using your crochet hook and yarn to mimic a sewing machine to do, kind of make the inseam of the squares. These are actually some really nice colors. So like I said, when you order a beanie, you have an opportunity to select what colors you want. And you can select up to 4 colors because each square pretty much has 4 colors on it. Unless you order an extra large, then I'm going to have to add another row, which you can add a 5th color if you wanted to, or we can just keep the 4 that you want and create like a design that would be unique for your request. So almost to the end of this one. Okay. Boom. So I like to keep about 2 inches. This is like more like 4 inches, but I like to keep at least 2 inches within the work to sew or weave back in, because I just don't want it to unravel. I want all of my clients to know that minimally you can wash your product. I always recommend air drying, just because you don't want to shrink the yarn, especially since most of the yarn I'm using is cotton or wool or microfiber, and you just don't want to do that. So now we have 4 together, and so we just need to do the other side. Oh, that looks so good. Oh no, that doesn't look good. Hold on. You're supposed to keep your inseam here, but you can't really see it, but you can if you're looking. So how it's bubbling up here, I wanted to keep that on the inside, and I did not do that right here. So I'm gonna have to take this out. Where's my little clipper? Let's see. Because I did not make a knot yet, I can go through and just pull that. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that part over. Okay. Okay, because I can use that for when we do. So again, want to keep the inseams on the same side. So this is what I should have did the first time. Okay, so let's try this again. So we're gonna do this like we're quilting again, and we want to keep the seams on the inside, or at least on the same side as each other. So it's our little slip knot there. And here we go. This is what it's supposed to look like. I wasn't paying attention. I got all hyped up. Be telling a story. Cora May, oh, it's my girl. She has passed away a few years ago, but her spirit still just resonates in me. You just never forget certain experiences and certain stories, you know, especially as it ties to something that is so a part of like the inner workings of my life. So let's see here. So we're almost to the end and we just need to do the other side. I'm like trying to super focus so I don't drop a stitch because you'll surely be able to tell right now. All right, so again, we want to secure our edge and just want to weave back some of the yarn before we cut it because we don't want to cut it so close that if it were to come apart while we're still working, we wouldn't have to do the whole roll again. If that makes sense. Okay, so then I'm just going to do one more knot at the end here just to hold it in place. Then I can cut it after that. So again, this is done correctly. You see that the seams are inside, they're right here. This black is a great cover up, so may not have been so bad, but it's still beautiful. All right, so I'm just gonna do this other side. Again, make sure seams and the extra yarn is on the inside. Let's do our little slip. Okay. Just go on down my edges. Here we go. Here we go. Make sure it all lines up so we don't have a crooked head. Yep. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. And boom. So we just have 2 more steps. And then we'll have a complete beanie ready to go out. This one is actually already sold, so I'll be sending this one out ASAP. Okay, so now for the next step. So we have our 2 sides. I just want to show them off because they're so pretty. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to put these 2 parts together. And again, we want to be sure to keep our seams on the outside because we want them all to show. So literally what we have to do is pull together these 2 sides, okay? So we're going to do that by putting single crochet on the edge. Go, ladybug, go. Okay. Just a few more stitches. Then I'm going to have to find some more black. There we go. So click that. Okay. So just need to do the other side now. I think we are going to have just enough to do this side too. So it's not wasting the yarn. And we're just going to do our slip knot, do a slip stitch in, and do a single crochet as top, or across the top, I should say. That's so much. That is so funny. I have this policy of no wasting yarn. Even to this backdrop is actually like the extra pieces of yarn that have been snipped away off of other projects. and I decided to make a backdrop out of it because I didn't want to throw away the yarn. So no yarn wasted around here, okay? Okay, so just a few more. Oh, yep, see, I'm perfect. Literally one stitch away from not having enough yarn. Okay. Just enough to clean to clear that edge over there. I love when that happens. So serendipitous. Saying that I'm doing what I'm supposed to, you know? So now this is where the fun part happens. So if you were planning on making like a little small granny square throw pillow, this is how you would do it. But we're not making a throw pillow. We are making a beanie. And so I'm going to take that piece of crochet of yarn that we had from that piece that we messed up on, because clearly I don't have any more black yarn to close off this process. So you don't need a knot at the end because you're actually going to leave it loose. And so all you're going to do is, you see this edge here? You're going to go put your hook into the edge and you're going to go every single one, kind of like, like weaving it in through every other stitch. Just want to pull that yarn through while you're doing it. So remember, every other double crochet stitch, you're going to put your hook through. And you're going to keep on going until you get to where you started. There you go. Like that. And then guess what? We made it back to the other side. So we're just going to go ahead and pull our needle off. And so now you have this area here, right? And you're just going to pull like a drawstring. You're going to pull tight to close up top of your beanie. See that? And this will be that moment in time if you wanted to put like the little puff at the top. This is when you'll put it in before you close off. That way you know it's secure inside there. Okay. But we're not doing pom-poms on these beanies. It's already enough going on. Unless it was like a special order type deal. But for most people, I think they're fine with all the colors and the current presentation. So just want to do a few knots just to make sure it's all the way secure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now that we have it all taken care of, I'm going to go through and actually cut off the extra pieces of yarn because we don't need those on here. And they're all sewn back in so we don't have to worry about getting too close to an actual stitch and then the work unwinding or unraveling. We don't want that. We do not want that. Not at all. I think that'll be it. Let's see if there are any on this side. Oh, just a few actually. And there we are. Granny Square beanie complete. This is number 2 for today because I did this one earlier on live. And that is just a bunch of blues mix. So really can't tell the granny square, but this is the one here. These are the style. These are the ones I love. These are the ones you want to support. So again, if you're interested in purchasing a beanie, you can click in the link that I have inside the info below. If you want to make a contribution to Believe in What You Dream, you can visit donate.yarnmovement.com. And if you're interested in just seeing the new creations that are happening, please feel free to join every Sunday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, as I'm creating these live. If you place your order, I might be making yours live, so you get to see it in action. And look out for other videos that are coming up. All right, it's That Ladybug signing out.